Hello, Milepost 1. Welcome to the Toy Museum. In IPC today, we're still thinking about history, and we're going to look at toys from the past. Now, last week, or earlier this term, Miss Rowe gave you a reading activity, which was about toys. We're going to look at them in a bit more detail today. Now, thanks to Dr. Story, she sent me lots and lots of information and lots of pictures of toys from her museum. So we're only looking at the toy section of her museum today. Now, on your Classdojo page, you should have an activity that looks a little bit like this, with 3 columns. If you can print that off, great, but you don't need to. You could just draw these 3 columns into your book or on a piece of paper, because when I show you the name of a toy, you have to decide if it is ancient, old, or modern. Another way of saying modern is new. You all know what old means. So what do you think ancient might mean? Something that's ancient is really, really, really old. So when you see the toy, you have to decide if it is ancient, old, or modern. Our teddy bear on the front. If I showed a picture of the teddy bear and the word teddy bear, you could decide that teddy bear is an old toy. If it was a brand new teddy bear that I just bought from the supermarket or from a toy shop, you could write teddy bear in this one. Or if it was a teddy bear from 2,000 years ago, you could put it in ancient. So you decide, ancient, old, or modern. Are you ready to have a look at some toys? Some of them you will recognize, some of them people don't play with anymore. Here's the first one. What do you think that is? Have a think to yourself. I'm going to show you in a second. This is a hoop and stick. Now, a hoop and stick was used about 100 years ago, almost as far ago as 150 years. And basically, you roll the hoop and you've got to keep it going for as long as you can by pushing it with the stick. So around 100 years ago, lots and lots of children would have played with a hoop and stick. I've given you a big clue there where you can sort that into your grid. Do you think it's ancient, old, or modern? Because it's the first one, I'll give you a little helping hand. Hoop and stick, I think, is old. Hoop and stick, right. We're moving on to the next toy. You might recognize this one. What do you think those are? Now, you might recognize them because they were very popular at trade winds last year and the year before. These are marbles. So look at the word marbles and write it into that sorting diagram. Do you think marbles are ancient, old, or modern? You can pause the video if I've not given you enough time to write the word marbles. Okay, we're looking at the next one. This might look familiar as well. What do you think that might be? We've got them at school. They just look very different. This is actually a football. A football. Now, footballs used to be made by taking the bladder of a pig and blowing it up and tying it, and then you can see they've stitched leather around the outside. So this is cow skin around the outside, and the inside would be the insides of a pig. Yes, footballs aren't made quite like that anymore, and this one doesn't look like the ones we have at school. You decide, is it ancient, old, or modern? Write football into your sorting diagram. And we'll move on to the next one. Do you recognize this? Now, this is quite a modern picture of this toy. I wonder if any of you have used this. This is a yo-yo. Decide where you think yo-yo needs to go on your sorting diagram. Is it ancient, old, or modern? Now, for our next one, lots of you will know somebody who has one of these. You might even have one yourself. I'm going to show you this. Do you know what this is? This is an Xbox One. Do you think it is ancient, old, or modern? Yeah, there are lots and lots of games consoles like this. PlayStation and Nintendo have got similar games consoles. Are they ancient, old, or modern? Write down what you think, and then we'll move on to the next one. If you've got a grown-up watching this video with you, they might recognize some of these toys. Does anybody recognize a Scalextric? Now, this is a racetrack. You've got these to control the cars that move around the track, but you've really just got go, and then you let go to stop it. So you hold it down to make it go really, really fast, but you let go to make it slow down and stop. If you go too fast going around the corners, your car falls off, and the other person would win the race. Do you think it's ancient, old, or modern? Okay, the next one will look very familiar. It's the only one on here that's not really a toy. We've seen something that looks like that at school. They are crayons. Look at that package. Do you think they are ancient, old, or modern? Write the word crayons into that sorting diagram. Okay, what do you think about this next one then? Last week, Bea shared a picture of a Barbie that had belonged to her mum and her auntie. And Bea's Barbie was 33 years old. This is also a doll like Barbie. Do you think it's older than Barbie or more modern? Do you think it's ancient, old, or modern? Write doll somewhere in your sorting diagram. On to the next one. Now this, you can tell that times have changed and toys have changed. Look what it says here. This toy is engineering for boys. They're saying that girls, you're not allowed to use this. That's very unfair. Everybody should be able to do engineering. This is Meccano. Look at that Meccano. It's a building set with lots and lots of different metal pieces, metal parts. You've got nuts and bolts and different sections that you can build together. Do you think Meccano is ancient, old, or modern? Okay, this one here. Has anybody seen one of these before? Maybe your grown-ups might recognize what this is. This is a Tamagotchi. A Tamagotchi has a little animal that you have to keep alive. You use these buttons here to decide what to do. Do you give it some water, or do you give it a cuddle, or do you give it some food, or do you make sure it's been to the toilet? You've got to keep your little animal alive on this computer game. A Tamagotchi. Is it ancient, old, or modern? Okay, I said the crayons were the only ones that weren't a toy. This one's a bit different too. Does anybody know what this is and where it comes from? This is a boomerang. Boomerang from Australia. Now, it is a toy now. People use them as toys, but they used to be used for hunting. Like a throwing stick for hunting, normally hunting birds, but they were also used in fights as well. So this is actually a weapon from the past that now people use as a toy. We have lots of toy weapons when you think about it. Plastic swords, Nerf guns. This boomerang used to be a weapon, and now people have it as a toy. But is it ancient, old, or modern? Write the word boomerang in your sorting diagram somewhere. Okay, the next one. You can see from the picture, and there's the boy smiling in the picture next to his train set. Do you think this train set is ancient, old, or modern? Right, on to the next one. You might have seen something that looks similar to this. Does anybody know what it is called? It's got a few names. This can be called a diabola or a Chinese yo-yo. Sometimes they've got two sticks with this string, and you have to balance this part on the sticks and then keep it spinning. And you can throw it up in the air and do lots and lots of interesting tricks with it. And you get it going really, 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 really fast. And you can throw it up really, 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 really high. There were other versions of this toy where you just have one stick with a piece of material, a piece of leather, to keep something spinning. Again, that's the same sort of thing. Do you think this toy is ancient, old, or modern? Write it into the sorting diagram. Diabola or Chinese yo-yo. Remember, you can pause the video if you're taking your time to make sure your handwriting is gorgeous. Next one. Another one to ask your parents about. Maybe some of the grown-ups, maybe even grandparents recognize this machine. It actually has its name written on it. This is Pong. Do you think Pong is ancient, old, or modern? And then the next one is another type of computer game. This also has its name written on it. This is a Game Boy. Look at this Game Boy. Do you think it is ancient, old, or modern? Write Game Boy into your sorting diagram. Okay, have a good look at this. Get nice and close. Have a very, very good look. Can you tell what this is? It's made of wood. It looks a little bit like a nut, I think. Do you know what it would be used for, or how somebody would play with this? This is a spinning top. A spinning top, so you would hold it by the wide end here, and either using your hand or using a whip, you would spin it round, so it would spin on the point of it on the floor. We have these now, and they look very, very different. In fact, the next toy is a little bit similar to our spinning top. Do you think the spinning top is ancient, old, or modern? And then our last example. I'm sure lots of people recognize this. This is a fidget spinner. Do you think fidget spinner is ancient, old, or modern? Write it into your sorting diagram now. Now I've collected all of these toys and put them into our toy museum, which I'm about to show you. I'm also going to tell you how old they are. And if I can, I'll tell you a little bit more about them. Here is our toy museum. You can see all of the things that we've just looked at together, and it goes in order. This is our timeline from the oldest, all the way across to the most modern. The fidget spinner is the newest. Now this old one, this Chinese yo-yo, 3,000 years BCE. That means before people started counting the years, before year 1 was decided. We have to go back. So this is actually 5,000 years old, or a toy similar to this, 5,000 years old. The next one, the marbles. These are actually Roman marbles. They were found in Rome, ancient Rome, 2,500 BCE, so over 4,000 years old, these stone marbles. So we've got, this one's made of wood, we've got stone. The next one is also wood, the spinning top, and the spinning top, 500 BCE. So this one is over 2,000 years old, this wooden spinning top. So more than 2,000 years ago, somebody was playing with this, just like we can play with spinning tops now. The doll, Bea talked about her Barbie being 33 years old, which is a very long time for a doll, but not as old as this doll. This doll, 500, so about the same age as the spinning top. Over 2,000 years old. Now, I said the picture of the yo-yo was quite new, but yo-yos have been around for a very long time, 1,700 years. So what, 1,700 years. This yo-yo, the idea of a yo-yo, has been around for a very long time. They came over about 300 years ago. They first started being used a lot in Europe, and actually yo-yos were very popular in Germany about 200 or 300 years ago. The boomerang, it started out as a weapon, and the weapon, we've got evidence, scientific evidence to show us that 800 years ago, boomerangs were being used as weapons in Australia. They weren't used as toys then, but they were used for hunting. And the next one, this football that's made of the bladder, the inside of a pig, and then the skin of a cow is on the outside. This football is about 500 years old. So we're now in the year 2020. This is from the year 1500. So it's about 500 years old. This football is actually found in a house owned by Mary, Queen of Scots. So this could be a famous person's football. The stick and the hoop, very, very popular in Victorian times. So this is about 200 years old. 200 years ago, children didn't have the fancy toys that we have now. They had a metal hoop and a stick to push it around with. Then we've got the crayons. Now we're still using crayons. We still have crayons made by Crayola. This packet of crayons is actually over 100 years old. It's amazing to think we've still got crayons. People use them every day around the world. This packet is 100 years old. The Meccano. Now, I had a Meccano set when I was growing up. Mine looked a bit different to this. It didn't have this lovely wooden box that this one comes in. But this Meccano set is about 100 years old as well. And I bet some of your grown-ups had Meccano when they were growing up. They might have also had a train set. And this is a clockwork train set. It's a train that you build the track as well, and it goes around the track on its own. And that train set is about 70 or 80 years old. You can see the difference when we put the toys out like this, how the colours have changed. We went from lots and lots of brown and grey and not very interesting to look at to, ooh, Crayola have done a lovely box for their brightly coloured crayons. Meccano have got some nice red colours in theirs. This train set's really bright. And then we come on to the next one, the Scalextric. Now, I didn't have a Scalextric, but I had friends who had a Scalextric. But this is from 1956, which is 60 years ago, 70 years ago. And still people have Scalextrics tracks now. You can build the track and you can change the design of the track and race your friends. Now, Pong is a computer game. Now, my dad, Mr. Scullion Senior, had Pong when he was at university. And lots of people would gather around and you have to battle against somebody else. It's like tennis, but on the computer. 1972. That's 50 years ago. And then the Game Boy. When I was growing up, I wasn't allowed to have electronic devices. I wasn't allowed computer games, which is a good thing because I had my face in a book instead, so I did lots and lots of reading. But anytime somebody came to my house for a sleepover, they always brought their Game Boy, and they would go to sleep, and I would stay up playing their Game Boy all night because I didn't have one of my own. So I had to wait for somebody to come to my house so I could use theirs. So the Game Boy from 1989. This Game Boy is the same age as Mr. Scullion. Then we come on to the Tamagotchi. These were really, really bad news for teachers because everybody got Tamagotchis and everybody brought Tamagotchis into school, and they definitely weren't allowed to. Nobody did any schoolwork because they were too busy looking after their Tamagotchi on the screen. This is from 1996, so it's about 30 years old. And then we've got this games console. Xbox One, only 7 years old. Very modern games console. You might know some people who've got an Xbox or a PlayStation. Maybe your grown-ups at home have got one. And then the last one, the Fidget Spinner. Also bad news for teachers because nobody's listening to them. They're all fiddling with their fidget spinner. These were brought back and made very, very popular in 2017. That's only 3 years ago. That's definitely the most modern thing. It's amazing to see how toys have changed. When you think about something like this, spinning top, no parts, it's just one thing, and you compare it to how complicated the computer is inside an Xbox, or even the computer inside a Game Boy. How much toys have changed. A really interesting question to think about is, how do we know how old these things are? Well, there are clues to be found in lots of different places. This is a pot. It is an ancient Greek pot. And on the pot, over 2,000 years ago, nearly 3,000 years ago, somebody painted a boy using a yo-yo. So this is the yo-yo, and you can see somebody using it in this painting. Now, the pot has been preserved. So they found this pot when they were doing an archaeological dig. A bit like the Miss Rowe activity that you did last week with the layers of evidence and then the soil and then more. People dug underground. They found this pot from ancient Greek times, and they found in the picture a boy playing the yo-yo. So these vases or pots are one way we can tell how old these toys are. Here's another way. This is in a book called Children's Games. Now, this book was written 500 years ago. And in it, the author and illustrator have included these pictures. You can see this spinning top is much, much older, but still children 500 years ago were playing with their spinning top. And you can see they've got a whip to make it spin faster and faster and faster and keep going. And this is somebody blowing up the pig's bladder, blowing air into it to make a football. So 500 years ago, people were making footballs using animal parts. Not suitable for vegetarians. And then other clues. These marbles, you can see in this carving. This is a Roman carving on part of a building from ancient Rome. And you can see the children are using marbles in this picture, just like we still do today. We're playing marbles today, and they were playing marbles 3,000 years ago. Okay, some of the objects weren't that old. This one, the hoop and stick, about 100 or 150 years old, and you can see now it's not a painting or a carving or a pot. This is a photograph. So this little boy is standing with his hoop and his stick, because cameras were just being used by people around the same time as the hoop and the stick. This little boy will have been from a very, very, very rich family, because you can see he's got really lovely clothes and he's in a photograph. If you were from a poor family, there wouldn't ever be a photograph of you because you wouldn't be able to afford a camera. This was one very, very lucky boy. And that brings us to the end of our toy museum. We will use these pictures. We will look at these toys a little bit more as we carry on this term. But I've got some questions for you to think about. Which of these toys have you used? I'll go back and show you them again in a second. Which of these toys have you used? And would you like to try any of the other ones? You can send me a video on your portfolio just to let me know, oh, I've used this one and this one and this one, and I'd really like to try a hoop and stick. And then if you did the task with Miss Rowe last week, where she asked you to interview somebody, and she asked you to call somebody or speak with somebody who was older, you could call them again and ask them these questions about their toys. Or if you've done that already, try to remind yourself what they said, because toys have changed an awful lot. And we'll look a little bit more about how they've changed later on this week. But you could ask somebody, What was your favorite toy? What was it made from? And what other toys were popular? When I was growing up, the toys that were popular were Game Boy, Tamagotchi. Then when I was a teenager, that's when we started having games consoles and things like that. But I have used Meccano, definitely used a football and a yo-yo, and I've used marbles. They've been around for a very, very long time. Okay. You could ask somebody these questions. I'd love to find out what they have to say. Take a picture of the sorting activity where you've written the words underneath ancient, old, and modern, and send that on your portfolio. I look forward to seeing them, and I cannot wait to look at some more old toys and think about how they've changed and why. There'll be more activities for you to try at home because this IPC today has been really, really short. So have a look on your Classdojo and join in with some of the activities that I'll be posting a bit later on. See you very soon, everybody. Bye.